Welcome back to the second channel, y'all. I'm going to get right into it on this one. I started typing this up to be in the series of video essays, and I decided to just do this extemporaneously. I wanted to actually be able to give the words that I'm saying the appropriate weight and tone and emotion without being a semi-detached narrator. So here we go. We're going to talk about racism today. We are going to talk about the current state of affairs with racial relationships, and we are going to talk about how we have moved past the era in which shame seems to be an effective tool to keep racism at bay. So let's get into it. One of my favorite movies growing up was Excalibur. Still love the movie. I still watch the movie occasionally. But there's a scene in there in which Arthur is dueling with Lancelot right after they first meet, and Arthur loses the duel, and rather than gracefully take the L, he decides to make it something more than it was, which was a duel for sport, and pulls out Excalibur in order to attack Lancelot, because Excalibur is a sword of power. He's using the ultimate weapon that he has access to. In the process, he slays Lancelot, who is a virtuous knight, and he breaks Excalibur. I can think of no better metaphor for what has happened with the idea of the term racist and racism. The radical, liberal, and progressive elements of the left have pushed it so far that they've now broken it. We now have a woman, I believe she was from Minnesota, Shiloh Hendricks, who was caught brazenly using the gamer word on video, knowing that she was being taped, knowing that it was going to be uploaded, probably knowing that it was going to go viral and that she was going to be doxxed, using it anyways. Now, you may say, well, you may begin to try to attribute something broken and wrong with her that she would so brazenly do such a thing. Well, she's some trailer trash single mom, da-da-da-da-da. From what I understand, she's not a single mom. I don't know whether or not she's trailer trash, but that has nothing to do with her character. And in the wake of it, she started a fundraiser because she did get doxxed in order to help her and her family relocate, and has raised over $750,000. So what that tells you, that not only was something within her so fed up that she went ahead and used that word, but there are enough people out there that support what she did in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in retaliation to what happened with the Carmelo Anthony incident and all of the hate that was coming out on there with comments like "kill the white people." She's managed to raise $750,000. I mean, it's not a bad day's haul. So, I think the problem that people have to begin to recognize, though, is that what this tells us is that shame isn't working anymore. Now, I watched a video on the same subject from Carl Benjamin, Sargon, if you will. And one of the things that he notes is that, shame only works within your own in-group, within your tribe. The exclusion, the shunning, all of that, and the stigma only works provided that you actually want to belong to that group. When you no longer want to belong to that group, it doesn't matter if they try to shame you, because you don't care. He gives a perfect example. He talks about, if a Middle Eastern Muslim were to try to shame you for your views on women wearing burqas, you wouldn't care. It just doesn't matter to you. Okay, well, of course you think that a woman should wear a burqa, and of course I don't agree with you. You can shame me all you want, but it's not going to matter to me. It's not just that shame isn't working anymore, but the underlying reason in that people don't care enough to belong to the greater collective group for shame to be a sufficient motivator really begins to tell us how overuse of this and how the more progressive and radical elements pushing things like white guilt, white privilege, white fragility, all these white terms have led people to decide that it is not worth if that's what has to be accepted in order to belong to the group, they'd rather not belong. To quote Lucifer in Paradise Lost, I believe it was, it's better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. It's better to rule as somebody who gets to say the gamer word in some sort of cultural seclusion than it is to serve in cultural inclusion, if that inclusion means that you have to self-flagellate sufficiently in order to be accepted in because of an immutable attribute which you possess, i.e., your ethnicity. People just don't care anymore. They're getting to where they don't care. And you've broken it. You have broken Excalibur. Every race grifter, every Robin DiAngelo, every person that has ever hosted a struggle session so that white people who want to feel better about some amount of guilt that you collectively told them that they should have. And they want to struggle and find some sense in which they were racist at some point, even though in all likelihood they've probably never done an overtly racist thing in all of their life. They wanted to join in so that they could find something, so that they could feel like they were moving on, they were getting better, and they were doing better. Congratulations, it's broken. What does this say about our cohesiveness as a nation? It says that we probably don't have one great society existing together. What we're probably moving toward more and more is sets of parallel societies existing. Hopefully largely peaceful. Just so everybody knows, this isn't something that makes me particularly happy, and it shouldn't make anybody particularly happy to sit there and watch the fabric which binds us together as a nation be torn asunder over made-up concepts of things like colorblind racism and white fragility and white privilege. There's another one. So, everybody that has pushed these concepts, here you go. Everybody that has talked about dog whistles and the inherent racism of basically benign activities or hobbies that some people may have, like, I don't know, fitness. Did you know fitness is a sign of white supremacy and the patriarchy? Because the two go hand in hand. You've broken it. That's it. And now the one weapon that you had in order to silence anybody that disagreed with you has been taken from you. You know, it's the boy who cried wolf, well, the they, them that cried racist. Everybody says, yeah. We all know everybody's racist, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of it. And it's sad. It really is sad to sit there and think about the fact that, you know, our collective identity as Americans in the very near future may devolve into the point that nobody cares to be American. And let's be honest, it's not really that far off. I mean, we've seen states talk about seceding from the Union. Do we really believe that if large chunks of states started to secede along ideological boundaries, that the remaining states would actually want to put up enough of a fight and a repeat of the Civil War in order to keep them? I mean, I'm sorry, if California and Oregon and Washington wanted to secede tomorrow, I don't know many people from Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and Florida that are itching to send their sons and daughters to fight a war to keep them. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Now, there may be some deeper reasons like infrastructure or something like that, but yeah, I think when we sit back and we really take stock of the landscape around us and we really begin to understand how far we've slidden, that's a word, how far we've slid down along the idea of being a cohesive one. It's sad. And the problem isn't even that the ask is so great. People want to act like it's a huge deal to have a multi-ethnic society, and it's not unique in history. You have a lot of very metropolitan societies throughout history which were multi-ethnic. But what bound them together historically was a sense of identity that was alluring and appealing and greater than what could be drawn along ethnic lines. Yes, that is the first level of organization, is along familial and ethnic lines. But you have all sorts of empires and nations that have been built, that have been multi-ethnic and have lasted for a very long time. But the sense of belonging to the greater collective was there, and because the radical and progressive elements within this country have basically really started to drive the majority constituents of the country by population out from that cohesive oneness. I'm not sure it can be recovered at this point, but I remain cautiously optimistic, and I'll hope for the best. Anyway, that's it on this one. We'll see you guys on the next one.